This seems like a good time for a drink and a cold, calculated speech with sinister overtones. A speech about politics, about order, brotherhood, power. But speeches are for campaigning. Now is the time for action.
Hey everybody, Rick and Morty is back. We have to freak out about that twist at the end. Evil Morty is back. This is so crazy. The promo they released for it was the fake out to end all fake outs. Really quick Atlantis adventure. Nothing special going on in this episode at all. Cut to now is the time for action. So let's talk about the mythology, like the actual running storyline, because I think there's a big hat tip for the finale because Rick's going to be fighting the president, quote unquote. And then we'll do Easter eggs. They had so many big crowd shots. Anytime they do that, you always try to spot the Ricks in the background. There's always a couple Easter eggs peppered through every single scene. But if you're new to the channel, I do Rick and Morty episodes every week. Be sure to subscribe to get everything. There's giveaway stuff that I'll explain at the end of the video. They always make new merch based on all the episodes. You can just guess that that Morty symbol, the pin that they're all wearing now, is probably going to be in stores tonight. Well, let's crank the Eagles. This is so awesome. So the beginning of the episode opens just like the teaser. They go to Atlantis, then jump back at the end. Like that's all you see of it. Apparently C-137 Morty just got laid. I think this is the first time he's been laid by something that's actually alive, not including the sex bot from Raising Gazorpazorp back during season 1. Technically, that would be the first time that he's actually had sex. I don't even want to think about the mechanics of having sex with a mermaid. Maybe her top half was a fish. You guys can think about that in the comments. But then we meet the Rick and Morty that are trying to raise funds to rebuild the Citadel, and we find out about the real plot. So the title, Tales from the Citadel, was what was first reported, then they changed it on the wiki and it just read the Ricklantis Mixup. I think the whole reason why they tried so hard to deceive people was just because the Citadel was destroyed during the first episode, so they didn't want to tip their hat to the fact that it was coming back. Either way, I was totally fine with it. Like, it's okay if you're going to deceive people when the episode is as good as it was. This is probably one of my favorite episodes so far, just in the way they were able to weave in so many different types of stories, so many different tropes, and stuff that's happening in the real world. So obviously you detected all the election stuff that they were parodying in it, but it was also a collection of tropes from urban thrillers. They had a lot of Training Day. There was even Stand By Me. So if you're not sure what Evil Morty's plan is, effectively he's just taking over the Citadel and he's subjugating everyone. Like at the beginning of the episode when Rick refused to contribute to the Citadel fund, he said, those people are all slaves. They're all prisoners of the culture of the Citadel. Like he was basically saying they're all lemmings. They're sheep to the slaughter. And that transition to the Eagles song in the city was a nice way to highlight that. Like you just see them all moving like a bunch of sheep down the street. There are a couple Easter eggs, like there's a Morty on top of Rick's shoulders here. There's all the people in the Simple Rick factory, so you follow a couple different threads. You also probably recognize the voice of Sam Elliott from Lebowski. He was the stranger in that movie, but he did the voiceover for the Simple Rick commercials. But Evil Morty tries to use all these divisions in the Citadel, their culture, the economic, the social problems they're having, to try and promise people a better way of life. So even though he seemed like a parody of Trump, they had all the different Ricks. The comb-over Rick, Private Sector Rick, I think is the actual parody of Trump, and he really didn't say a lot, so I felt like they actually did a good job of parodying the US election. They didn't get too heavy-handed with it, but Juggling Rick was just sort of comedy Rick. Rick Guilt Rick is basically like the racist white guilt Rick. The rent is too damn high. Who remembers that guy? It's been so long since he's been in the news. Then Reverse Rick Outrage is like Reverse Racism Rick. So a whole lot of tropes with a whole lot of US real-life politics sprinkled in here. But one of you did ask me about the 716 clones. So you have A, B, and C, and each one of them gets progressively more disfigured. I forget who you are, but you messaged me thinking this might be Tomax and Zaymot from G.I. Joe. But the thing is there's no third brother on G.I. Joe. But I think it's just because one has the scar, the other doesn't have the scar. I don't know necessarily that they were going for a G.I. Joe thing here, but we learned that all Ricks have a uranium implant. Like, remember, we saw the robot Rick back during the Jerry episode. It was like, hey, wait a minute, is this Inspector Gadget Rick? What's going on here? So apparently they all have implants like that. But I guess you could think of the Simple Rick factory as sort of a send-up on Soylent Green mixed with Willy Wonka. Like, he was definitely dressed like Willy Wonka. But they're basically eating the goo that's secreted from Simple Rick when he's really happy. And you actually see a couple Easter eggs in this. Like, a lot of people think that Beth is wearing her mother's necklace in this, and we might actually see more of her real childhood during the ABCs of Beth episode, which is in a couple weeks. They did a great job with the cop storyline. My takeaway was that they were going for Training Day, where you have this really idealistic Rick that doesn't act like other Ricks. Like, he's not an asshole like all the other Ricks are supposed to be. Then there's the Morty cop who hates other Mortys, so it's like Morty on Morty racism. So you probably picked up on all the social, racial undertones that they weaved into this. I mean, it was done in a funny way because it's Rick and Morty and they're all cartoons and they're acting really silly. But I love that Mortys, who are the underclass, are literally the underclass of the Citadel, so the place where they live is called Morty Town. It's a giant slum. They go to the crack house, or the meth house, however you want to think about it, where they have this crazy addict Rick cooking them portal fluid. My initial takeaway is that they were going for meth here, but you could call it crack, whatever cheap drug you want to think of. But we learn what happens when you mess up the chemistry of portal fluid. It just immediately vaporizes him. And then the whole joke about the crib is just another send-up on urban movies like that. Like, whenever cops go into some sort of crack den, there's always some crying baby in the corner, so it's just a reference to that. The Morty school is also really interesting too. Like, they say their curriculum has changed. We can theorize what the new curriculum is going to be under Evil Morty's regime. He'll probably just be trying to militarize the Mortys a little bit more. But you have Severus Snape Rick and all the Stand By Me characters. This scene is also from the intro, so it sort of breaks the false, true back and forth narrative that they did last season with the intro, like scenes that are fake and scenes that actually end up showing up during the season. So with the exception of the Butt Morty, we might actually wind up seeing every single part of the intro during an episode this year. A lot of you thought that they were going for Doofus Rick here. Tall Morty isn't the same, it's just another really dumb version of Rick. So on their way to see this great wishing portal, they actually travel to the Megatrees planet from the pilot where all the giant seeds were. We see a little dog robot that looked kind of like K9 from Doctor Who. River Phoenix Morty kind of commits suicide. We find out that it's actually just a giant trash dump, so maybe he's still alive in a giant trash pile on the other side of that. Cannot wait to see all the creepy Morty t-shirts walking around Comic-Con next year. It's effectively a strip club, which makes it even more creepy. Because you're like, wait a minute, these are all Mortys, one, which is already kind of weird, but two, they're all children, so it's just even nastier. But really, like, the big ending of the episode, when Evil Morty wins the election, takes power, walks into the council chamber, and you learn that they have this sort of OPEC cabal that's been controlling the council since before Rick blew up the Citadel in the first episode and the original council died. So I think the only thing that they were trying to parody here is just the idea that there's this evil group of businessmen that control the government, where Evil Morty comes in and he's supposed to be this man of the people. Like, he hates what Rick has done to everyone, and that's why he's on this crazy mission. It's just that we don't know exactly what his purpose is. Is he just going to try and kill all of the Ricks everywhere? Or is he going to try and do something else? Is he going to try and monopolize portal travel so that he effectively rules the multiverse? I think they did a good job of bouncing back and forth between both sides of this. Like, you have the Mortys, and then you have the Ricks on the other side of this divide. And they do a really good job of balancing how terrible people are. Like, you have terrible Mortys, you have all these gangs that are robbing people, then you have the Morty on Morty violence. Mortys killing Mortys like it always is. Rick's killing Mortys like it always is. So Evil Morty, who's a terrible person himself, is trying to take down Ricks who are evil, but a lot of them are just nice working stiffs. Not all the Ricks want to be assholes to all the Mortys, but then you have J22 Rick that gets killed by the Willy Wonka Rick and turned into the new Simple Rick. So on the serious side, they actually did a really good job of showing you that in real-world politics, you have a lot of terrible people on both sides, but there was also the silly stuff that was going on in the episode, and then you have the serialized element of Evil Morty and Rick potentially trying to take him down in the finale. So I'll do a separate video about it later this week, but the title of the finale is The Rickchurian Morty Date, as in the Manchurian Candidate. The description reads, Rick has a confrontation with the president, but people are like, which president is he talking about? Now we know that it's probably going to be the president of the Citadel, who is Evil Morty. But I love the way that they ended the episode using the same song from the last Evil Morty episode. So if you didn't know already, like, they just built it until they flipped that image over and you actually saw the eye patch coming off. But let me know in the comments if you guys spotted any other Easter eggs in the episode that I didn't mention in the video. Let me know what you thought of this compared to the other Season 3 episodes. Is this your new favorite? I know some people didn't like it as much, but for the most part, after the episode, all my timeline was all caps screaming about Evil Morty, so everybody seemed pretty jazzed up by it. There is a new round of that merch giveaway that I'm doing. All you have to do to enter is just be a subscriber, leave a comment on this video. Congratulations to the last giveaway winner, Muerte. Please private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact details. What'll happen next is I'll post my promo video for episode 8 tomorrow, then I'll do another Evil Morty video later this week. So just leave all your Evil Morty requests in the comments below. We'll be freaking out about him for a while. Click here for all my episode Easter eggs, and you can click here for that brand new Thor trailer. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. Now is the time for action.